And number 7, I don't want to coin a new phrase in international relations, but we talk about soft power. Let me share the idea of mind power. We need to address the battlefield on the mindset shift in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, but throughout the region as a whole. There is a poisonous effort going on that kills the hope and the aspirations of young generations everywhere in the region. And as it was suggested this morning, we need to build an alternative vision. I would prefer a vision called MENA 2050 that is in the making by civil society activists in the region to portray some potential hopeful horizon for young generations everywhere. Now let me say why I am optimistic.
Let me stop you here. Is that okay? I want Raif to, make his comments, and then I want to open the floor, and hopefully, in response to your questions, you can include your optimistic, perspectives. So, Raif.
2 quick reactions and 1 point to dig deeper on. First of all, when you talk about regional engagement in the core issues, I would be approach this very, very delicately, especially when it comes to Jerusalem. We all know the tensions between the Jordanians and the Saudis, and this has to be managed very carefully. That's one. When you talk about support, I mean, you talked about one kind of support, which I fully agree with, which is, financial, etc. There's another kind of support. I remember when we were involved in the reform process under Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, we used to get a lot of our assistance, technical assistance, etc., know-how from the West. You know what, today, I look at the region. I mean, we're in Abu Dhabi today. I look at the amazing work that has been done here to create one of the most efficient governance systems that I've seen anywhere. I think this is one area we bring in the region to participate. A footnote here, it's interesting. Of all of the reform efforts that we saw in the early 2000s, the one that was most stable and has most lasting was security. Partly because the Jordanians were the ones who trained it. There is a degree of cultural kind of ability to engage these issues that we don't have. The third one, though, which is the one that I actually want to dig a bit deeper on, is the issue, deeper but quicker, is the issue of we need the Arabs. Okay. We always talk about the need for the US and the West to pressure the Israelis, and I'm all for it. This is the nature of foreign policy, but we also need the Arabs to play a role in pressuring the Palestinians. Because ultimately, if you don't get the Palestinians to be pushed in the right direction, if you leave them to their own instincts, we will get nowhere. Now, there's a problem here in operationalizing this. To pressure the Palestinians, the tip of the spear has to be Jordan. It's the one with the most leverage, the most insight. Jordan is too hesitant to do this. Jordan is worried about the region. So we actually have to have a regional alignment, regional coalition to support the Jordanian and Egyptian roles. To do that, this requires, in particular, a Gulf role, requires creating some trust between Jordan and Saudi. And this is, again, where the UAE can play a really important role because this is the one country that's now moderating this relationship.
Hiba, before I turn to questions, the floor is yours.
You just took the words out of my mouth, definitely. So I will just remind that on Jerusalem, for example, whenever we have the escalation, Jordan comes in because Jordan already plays that role over the holy sites. It's part of the agreement with Israel, the Wadi Araba agreement, and it's also the agreement between the Palestinians and the Jordanians. So we see an effective role playing there. And of course, whenever something escalates in Jerusalem, especially during the high holiday season, the Jewish holidays, Muslim holidays, and Christian holidays to the same extent, actually, during Easter and Christmas, because you have pilgrims coming in. Even the Emirates, the Arab, the Gulf states, they react immediately when escalation takes place. So my point, it should not be a one-off or during holiday seasons. I think there's a role, there's a need, and the Palestinians, if they were left to our own devices, we will be self-destructive. So that's why I think it's very, very important to have a regional role and to get the Palestinians and the Israelis to talk under the auspices of regional sponsorship.
It's interesting, I have to say, that nobody mentioned the US, right? It's more the region. I'm just commenting. Yes. So I have a specific instruction from the lady boss, Dr. Ibtisam. I have to finish this session at 2:15. So we have 3 questions, and if possible, you ask the question, please, and no commentary, and so that we can give the floor to the panelists to answer. I'll start first with Mr. Al-Badr Al-Shatiri. Mr. Al-Badr Al-Shatiri, please introduce yourself and the question, please.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. My question is very quick to Kobi. It seems that his initiative smacks of the Arab Initiative, which is, full recognition and two states. Now it seems that, and I'm sorry to disagree with my colleague Kobi, that not only we shouldn't declare a two-state solution as dead, I think it's long dead, is overdue to be buried. And we should think of different models of settling this conflict. Perhaps we can use the Swiss model where Israeli Jews can have their autonomy and their Jewish character and culture and identity, the Palestinian Arabs, the Israeli Arabs, and there could be like 3, 4 cantons, and there is some federal system, because I don't see a two-state solution possible anymore. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Majdi Allam. Yes?
Yes. I'm actually referring to the situation of Lebanon and Israel in the gas wells on the Mediterranean coast. It's amazing for me, maybe in 1 week or 2 weeks, everything being so done so quickly, despite the fact that Israel, for more than a year, saying that this biogas well is owned by Israel. But because of the USA decision, and because of Mr. Aoun, the president of Lebanon, and because of the Christian and some of the religious department of Lebanon, in 1 week, Israel returned in its usual declaration that this well and biogas is Israeli one, not Lebanon one. So this is an example how USA and the mega power can influence Israel and the other partners to have an agreement. This is a very practical module. We must study it well, how we can do this. The other point is related to Ibrahimi religion, that including the Jews, Christianity, and Islam. I think this is an only Israeli proposal, not accepted at all by all the other religions, especially with the religious leaders. They cannot agree for the Ibrahimi approach as an alternative approach. There must be a peace for neighbors, states, recognition of Palestine as a state, not as a population, not as people, not as refugee. Palestine is the original. Israel is coming so recently. If you need a piece of land for Israeli, you must agree with Palestine to keep your right and their right. Thank you.
Mr. David Makovsky, question, please.
Yeah.
Especially if you are specific. If you have
very just specific. I thank to the panel for a very interesting discussion. I'm just wondering that could we use the creativity that we're seeing with the Project Prosperity, with the Emirates, with Jordan and Israel, the solar, green for red, green for blue, energy for electricity, the use of private sector, sovereign wealth investment funds. Can we see that creativity used to help the private sector in the West Bank? I think we all agree that political negotiations are not going to advance a lot given the election situation, the leadership in both Israel and the Palestinian Authority. So here's a case of where the region is creating new political space in Jordan, where you didn't have economic projects, and like was mentioned about Lebanon, here are 2 countries at war, but are finding a way to do business. In other words, the region is looking for more, paradigms, it seems, for creativity. So the use of private sector from the Gulf to expand hope for people on the ground. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you, I think There is a question addressed to you in particular, Kobe, right? And then anybody else would like to address also David's question in terms of creativity?
The two questions.
Yeah, 2 questions. Okay,
I will address.
Kobe.
Okay, first of all,
Short answers, please, because we have another short answers because we have another round of questions.
First of all, I still think that we need to stick to the two-state solution as the only viable solution to end the conflict, and we need to work hard on finding new ways to get to it. Anything else, my friend Al-Bada, is a recipe for never-ending conflict and bloodshed, I'm afraid. To my friend David Makovsky, I fully agree. The dynamics that we see with civil society across the region and business community is one of the reasons why I'm so optimistic. And let me share 2 more reasons why I am. We cannot rule out the possibility of progress. First, I'm not a representative of the Israeli government, nor do I speak on behalf of our elected prime minister. But let me just say that he has signed more agreements with Palestinians and 4 other Arab states, more than any other Israeli leader in the past, and he has never done this in cooperation with his coalition partners. So don't rule out his possibility of moving forward. Netanyahu wants to reach an expansion of the Abraham Accords. I believe he wants to see a deal with Saudi Arabia, and he understands the price. And the second reason for being optimistic is in contradiction with my friend Udi. I believe that the Israeli public opinion is mobile. Israelis didn't want PLO as negotiators and representatives of the Palestinian people back in '93, and within 3 months after the Oslo Accord were signed, they all of a sudden supported it. No other than Netanyahu could mobilize the Israeli public, and if he makes a decision, then anyone else, or the majority of the Israeli people, will go behind him.
Hiba.
Thank you. On the question of an independent Palestinian state first, I totally agree with that question. I think so long as Palestine is not a sovereign, independent state, free and able to make a decision, we are not going to have a true, real peace. So any model, and I've been working on a model called the Confederation with an esteemed Israeli colleague, Dr. Yossi Beilin, and the idea there is to declare Palestine a sovereign state first, then enter into a confederation with the State of Israel with a modular approach to having other states in the long term join, like Jordan perhaps, and what have you. But the idea again is, I totally agree as a Palestinian, and there's no two way about it. To be autonomous is a formula for a continued conflict management and continued state of occupation. So, and this has to end, and there's no two way about it to have peace or any other model to work. On the issue of regional cooperation, I also totally agree. I think the Palestinians need to be included. We need to change our thinking in terms of having a state first, and then all the economic development comes second. I think they can go hand in hand, and that would not, regional cooperation or cooperation on energy, using new technologies, and so forth, all of these creative ideas to create investment in Palestine and to create investment opportunities and hope for the Palestinians can come through these regional cooperation. But we have to, A, be invited, and 2, we have to think, to change our own thinking.
Udi, and then Raif.
I agree that somebody said that the situation today, that there is 2 entities in the Palestinian side. There is Gaza under Hamas and the West Bank under the PA. And I cannot see how they find the reconciliation and the unity of those areas. And there is something, somebody raised the issue of the maritime border. As you know, Israel accepted that the PA will be getting the energy that in the Gaza water. This is a very long time understanding and agreement between Israel and the Palestinians. So now everybody said, like in Lebanon, let's see if we can use that, the Palestinians can use that energy for the Palestinian purposes. And we have to see how they find the way between the PA and the Hamas, how they are going to organize that ability to use that energy in the water of Gaza. Basically, I agree with something which somebody said here, which is very important. We have to see in the front line of the region, Jordan and Egypt. Jordan and Egypt understand very well the conflict. Jordan and Egypt have very good relations and cooperation with Israel, especially security cooperation. They have leverage on the Palestinian side, and we need them in the front. The problem, there is reluctant. Nobody would like really to put its hands in that conflict, not inside and not outside. And we have to change that perception that there is no way to go forward in that conflict.
Raif, you want to comment further on this?
Actually, no. I have to address a couple of questions. I agree with Odian. That's why I said again, you need the regional alignment to give back to Jordan and Egypt, because alone they cannot do it.
But then he's saying they are not interested in stepping forward for it.
Especially the Jordanians, I think, interested or not, they have no choice because this is a national security matter for them. The question is, how do you embolden them and how do you give them enough comfort to move in that direction? But if I may, just two quick points. I mean, here and I would disagree with the Hiba and I would disagree with Mr. Magdi. The Palestine first approach, I think, is think of the past. What we heard this morning, what we heard yesterday from Dr. Gargash, we are in a post-ideological Middle East right now. Palestine first is a part of the old ideologies, be it Pan-Arabism, be it Islamism, etc. Today, countries are focusing on their own interest. And the sooner that the Palestinians realize that, the sooner they can benefit from it. If you think that the Palestine issue is going to be, Palestine first and everything opens up, I'm afraid the Palestinians will be left behind. There's a new reality. We have to understand it and we have to adapt. But let me finish on a positive note and answer to respond to David's question. I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And let me throw maybe a concrete idea here. We see a lot of high-tech cooperation between Israelis and Emiratis here and in Dubai. We see a lot of Palestinians who are interested in the high-tech sector with a degree of academic education, but with actually no experience, do not have the kind of operational culture that Israelis have coming out of the IDF, that the Emiratis have coming out of their incubators. Would be very interesting if we start bringing some Palestinians as in an apprenticeship program, in a partnership program, and then go back and be able to be absorbed in the high-tech sector in Israel, and maybe even Jordan can play a role here. So I think this approach, there's a lot that can be done here, and as Hiba said, you can do this in parallel to the ideas of how do we make political progress.
Very short. I have a hard stop at 2:15. So.
As we speak, more Palestinians are opening up, realizing that the Abraham Accord are an opportunity, and they are beginning to think about this. They mostly come from the business communities, and there are business transactions that could be built based on what David asked and what you just said. Second, if an Arab leader comes to Jerusalem after all the necessary negotiations, it will change the mindsets of Israelis, and things will move forward. As Sadat did in '77, I believe that there is a need for a disruptive, positive gesture that will change the dynamics on the ground.
At this point, I thank you very much for a very insightful discussion. I thank the audience. I'm sorry, I have a number of questions. A number of people who requested to ask questions. We don't have time. Again, hard stop 2:15. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.